Welcome to our deep dive all about South Africa. We're going on a pretty wild ride today.
Yeah, we're going to be jumping around in time a lot, from way back all the way to today.
But we're going to find some pretty amazing connections along the way between South Africa's past and its present.
It's kind of like we're piecing together this huge puzzle, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And with every piece we find, it's like we're getting a clearer picture of this incredible country.
So, are you ready to start digging?
Absolutely. First stop, the Nile River.
Oh, the Nile. That's a great place to start. I mean, it was the absolute heart and soul of ancient Egypt.
It's more than just water, too, right? It was like this superhighway, a source of life, and even, get this, the inspiration for a nickname.
Oh, totally. The Egyptians called it the gift of the Nile.
Makes sense.
For good reason. Like, every year the Nile would flood, and when it receded, it left behind this super fertile silt.
So basically, it turned what was basically desert into farmable land.
Exactly. And that's what allowed the settlements to grow and for their agriculture to really take off.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It really does.
You know, it's pretty amazing.
What's that?
Well, did you know? Even the ancient Greeks knew how important the Nile was. They called Egypt the gift of the Nile.
Wow. I mean, it just goes to show how much this one river shaped an entire civilization.
Really makes you think, like just imagine what it would have been like to live back then in ancient Egypt. To be so completely dependent on the Nile for, well, everything. Your food, how you get around, you name it.
It's hard to even fathom, right?
Totally. All right, let's see if you've been paying attention. Time for a little pop quiz. First question. What did the Nile provide for the ancient Egyptians?
Oh, that's easy. Fertile soil, water, and of course, transportation.
Bingo. Next question. Why was the Nile so important for farming in ancient Egypt?
Because, remember those floods we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, they brought in all that rich silt that made the land perfect for growing crops.
Right. Last question. How did the Nile affect where people settled?
Well, settling near the Nile had so many benefits. It gave you easy access to water, fertile land for growing your food, and you could even use it as a highway. It was prime real estate.
It sounds like it.
Huh.
All right, moving on from the Nile, let's zoom in on ancient Egyptian society. It wasn't just all pharaohs and pyramids, right?
Oh, definitely not. There were so many different roles people played. But one thing's for sure, they had a very structured hierarchy.
So like a pecking order.
Exactly. With the pharaoh at the very top, of course.
Right.
Then came the viziers, nobles, priests, and these guys were super important, the scribes.
Scribes. Why were they so important?
Think about it. They were the only ones who could read and write.
Oh, yeah. So they basically had all the knowledge.
They were like the keepers of knowledge. They documented everything, from laws and historical events to even, like, grocery lists.
Wow. I guess in a world without the internet, they were pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Being a scribe, that was a big deal back then. It meant a better life. You had influence.
You know, it's interesting. Did you know that being a scribe was actually a pretty good career path in ancient Egypt?
Totally.
It's amazing, isn't it? All those different roles in this complex society. Makes you wonder, if you lived in ancient Egypt, where would you fit in? What would your life be like?
That's a good question to ponder.
Okay, time for another quick quiz. First up, who had the most power in ancient Egyptian society?
Well, that one's easy. The pharaoh. What they said went.
You got it.
Yeah.
Next question. Why were scribes considered so important in ancient Egypt?
Because they could read and write. They were the only ones who could record and preserve their knowledge. They were the historians, the communicators, everything.
That's right. Final question for this round. Can you describe the structure of ancient Egyptian society?
Sure. It was super hierarchical. Everyone knew their place. Where you were in that hierarchy determined pretty much everything about your life. What you did, your rights, even the opportunities you had. Pretty rigid, right?
Totally. Okay, let's switch gears for a bit and unearth the story of Tutankhamun. This was a young pharaoh, better known as the Boy King, whose tomb, well, kind of captivated the world.
Yeah, 1922, right?
That's the one. His tomb was discovered then and gave us this incredibly rare glimpse into ancient Egypt's burial practices.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, they were opulent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things that made Tutankhamun's tomb so amazing was that it was pretty much untouched.
Unlike a lot of the other.
Most of the other tombs in the Valley of the Kings were, robbed.
So it was like stepping back in time.
Exactly. This perfectly preserved time capsule. Just imagine being the first person to step inside that tomb and see all that treasure.
It would be amazing.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, you name it, they found it. Gold, jewelry, even his golden throne was still there.
Did you know that a lot of the items found in Tutankhamun's tomb showed just how skilled the craftsmen were back then? the amount of detail, the materials, it all pointed to how wealthy and powerful the pharaoh was.
Absolutely.
Now, here's a thought. What do these elaborate burial rituals tell us about what the ancient Egyptians believed about the afterlife? I mean, it must have been pretty important to them.
I think you're right.
Okay, time for a quiz. First question. Who was Tutankhamun?
Oh, he was that young pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Died really young, too. His tomb is like one of the most famous archaeological finds ever.
You got it. Okay, next question. Who discovered Tutankhamun's tomb?
That was Howard Carter, a British archaeologist.
And for the final question, why was Tutankhamun's tomb such a big deal?
Well, because, like we talked about, it was basically untouched. It gave us this incredibly complete picture of how a pharaoh was buried.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about pyramids and pharaohs, but there's so much more to ancient Egypt. It was a hub of knowledge and invention.
Oh, definitely. They made huge leaps in things like medicine, math, astronomy, even architecture.
And the cool thing is, all this knowledge, it didn't just stay in Egypt.
Right. That's one of the most fascinating parts.
So how did Egyptian ideas and inventions spread beyond their borders?
Well, through trade routes, of course. They were always interacting with other civilizations, sharing their knowledge along the way.
So all these amazing innovations, they had this ripple effect across the ancient world.
Absolutely. It reached as far as Europe and the Middle East.
I'm always surprised by how connected the ancient world actually was.
Me too.
You know what else is pretty amazing? The ancient Egyptians were way ahead of their time when it came to math. They even used fractions in their calculations.
Wow.
It really makes you think about how information and ideas traveled back then. Like, what were the main channels for all this knowledge transfer?
Interesting question. It really shows you how interconnected the ancient world really was.
Okay, pop quiz time. What were some of the key areas where ancient Egypt excelled?
Well, like we just said, they were pioneers in medicine, math, astronomy, and architecture.
You got it. Now, how did their ideas and inventions spread to other places?
Through trade and interaction with other cultures. Sort of an early version of globalization, I guess.
And for the final question, which regions were most influenced by the knowledge coming out of ancient Egypt?
Europe and the Middle East definitely benefited from that exchange of ideas.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a little different.
Okay, what's up?
Heritage.
Ah.
And I don't mean just old artifacts gathering dust in a museum. I'm talking about the legacy we all inherit, the things that shape who we are, the tangible and the intangible.
It's like this invisible thread that connects us, right, to all the people who came before us.
Exactly. It's everything from the objects and buildings to the stories, the music, even the traditions that are passed down generation after generation.
It's what makes us us. And, did you know that in South Africa, they celebrate Heritage Day?
They do.
Yeah. It's on September 24th. It's a day where they recognize all the different cultures that make up the nation.
Sounds pretty amazing.
It is.
What about you? What are some of the things you cherish most about your own family heritage? What are those special stories, traditions, or even objects that tie you to your past?
Good question. I'll have to think about that one.
We can all think about it. But first, quiz time.
All right, hit me.
Define heritage in your own words.
I'd say it's that legacy from the past that shapes who we are today. It's literally everything passed down to us from previous generations.
Nicely put. Okay, give me an example of something tangible, something you can hold in your hands that represents heritage.
Okay, how about an old family photograph? Or a piece of antique furniture? Even an old recipe book that was your grandmother's. Those are all pieces of history, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, what's an example of intangible heritage?
Oh, that could be a song, a dance, even a story passed down through your family. Or the language your ancestors spoke. Those are all intangible things, but they're definitely part of our heritage.
Absolutely. All right, let's head to a place where the story of humanity is being revealed, fossil by fossil. The Cradle of Humankind.
The Cradle of Humankind. Amazing place.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's right there in South Africa. This site has given us so many fossils, and they're all helping us understand our ancestors and how life on Earth evolved over millions of years.
It's mind-blowing, really.
It really is. I mean, it's just incredible to think about it. Some of the oldest human ancestor fossils ever found right there in South Africa.
It's incredible. Did you know that the Cradle of Humankind is incredibly important to understanding human evolution? Like, it gives us a window into a time millions of years ago.
It must be pretty exciting to be a scientist working at a site like that. Imagine discovering a fossil that pushes back the timeline of human history. What a feeling that would be.
Totally. It would be like rewriting the history books.
Speaking of history, time for a quick quiz. First question. What is the Cradle of Humankind?
It's a paleoanthropological site located in South Africa. It's basically a place where they've found a ton of fossils of early hominids.
Okay, next. Why are fossils important when we're trying to understand human evolution?
Because they give us physical proof of our ancestors, we can literally see what they looked like and how they lived, all thanks to fossils.
Okay, last one. What's so important about finding some of the oldest human ancestor fossils in South Africa?
Well, it kind of suggests that South Africa played a crucial role in those very first stages of human evolution.
Amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Adds another layer to South Africa's already rich history.
It really does.
So from fossils, let's move on to another really cool archaeological site, Mapungubwe.
Mapungubwe. Okay, tell me more. Where is it?
It's in Limpopo. That's one of South Africa's northernmost provinces.
Okay, and what makes Mapungubwe so special?
Well, they found all these amazing gold artifacts there.
Really?
Yeah, especially this one. It's called the Golden Rhino.
The golden rhino. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's a small sculpture, but the detail is just incredible. It tells you a lot about the people who lived there, their artistry, and like how important the rhino was to their culture.
A golden rhino. Wow. What did it tell us about the people who lived at Mapungubwe? Like, what was their society like?
Well, did you know, the golden rhino, it's not just a beautiful object. It actually shows how much the people of Mapungubwe revered the rhino. It must have had a really deep meaning for them, a connection to nature.
I wonder what else they might have found there. Like, if we were to unearth all these golden treasures, what other stories could they tell us? About their beliefs, their connection to nature, their daily lives?
Fascinating to think about, right?
Totally. Okay, time for our Mapungubwe quiz. First question, where's Mapungubwe?
It's in Limpopo, in the northern part of South Africa.
Next question. What's so special about that golden rhino they found there?
It shows just how skilled the ancient goldsmiths were, for one thing. And then, of course, it tells us that the rhino was a really big deal to them culturally.
So, last question. What can we learn from those gold artifacts they dug up at Mapungubwe?
Well, we know they were incredibly talented artists, for one thing. I mean, creating such intricate pieces out of gold, that's amazing. And the fact that they chose to depict a rhino, it suggests it was a symbol of something, maybe power or a spiritual connection.
Okay, let's fast forward now. We're going to the 20th century to meet Frances Baard. She was a true hero in the fight against apartheid.
Oh, Frances Baard, what a woman. She was such a powerful force in the movement. She never stopped fighting for the rights of Black South Africans.
It sounds like she went through a lot.
She did. Imprisonment, all sorts of hardships, but she never wavered in her commitment to equality.
How is her legacy being honored today?
Well, did you know that they named a district municipality after her?
Really?
Yeah, it's in the Northern Cape. It's a testament to how much she did for South Africa.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Even when things seem impossible, courage and perseverance, they can change the world.
Yeah.
All right, quiz time. First up, who was Frances Baard?
She was a leading activist in the fight against apartheid. Really important figure.
Okay, what were the values that drove her activism? What did she believe in?
Justice, equality,
Mhm.
basic human rights for all South Africans. Those were her guiding principles.
And the final question, how is South Africa remembering her and everything she did?
With the Frances Baard District Municipality, it's in the Northern Cape.
Okay, so we've talked about human resilience. Now let's switch gears a little and talk about something that's a symbol of South Africa's transition from a pretty divided past to, well, a more unified future. We're talking about the Gariep Dam.
The Gariep Dam. Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? It used to be called the Verwoerd Dam.
It did.
But they changed the name. And that in itself is a powerful symbol, right? Of the shift away from apartheid and towards a more inclusive society.
So why did they decide to rename it?
Well, you know, the dam was built on the Orange River, and Gariep, that's actually the San word for Orange River.
So they renamed it using an indigenous word.
Yeah, it was a way of acknowledging the San people and their connection to the land.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. It makes you think about how names can really hold a lot of meaning, doesn't it? Like, what other examples can you think of where they changed a name to kind of mark a big societal or cultural shift?
Let me think.
We can ponder that later. Time for a quiz. First question. Why is the Gariep Dam so important?
Well, for a couple of reasons. First, it's the biggest dam in South Africa. It's a huge feat of engineering. And second, like we talked about, the name change. That represents the country's move away from apartheid.
Okay, next. What was the dam's original name? And why did they change it?
It used to be called the Verwoerd Dam. It was named after a prime minister who was very much associated with apartheid. Changing the name, it was a way to kind of distance the dam from that part of its history and to acknowledge the San people.
Last question. What does the new name Gariep actually mean?
It's the San word for the Orange River.
Right. And that symbolizes...
It symbolizes inclusivity and the recognition of South Africa's diverse heritage.
Okay, from this symbol of change, we're going to journey to the Eastern Cape. We're going to explore the healing power of nature. And we're going to do that through the aloe plant.
Aloe. That's a good one. It's been used in traditional medicine for ages.
It's amazing how people have been using nature to heal themselves for, well, probably forever.
Yeah, it really is.
So, what are some of the ways aloe has been used traditionally?
Well, did you know that it's really good for burns?
Really?
Yeah, and cuts and all sorts of skin problems. Aloe vera gel, it's like nature's miracle cure.
And, people still use it today. It's in tons of beauty products.
Pretty cool, right?
It really is. It just shows how that traditional knowledge, it still has a place in our modern world.
It does, and it makes you think what other plants have been used for medicinal purposes. There are probably so many more out there that we haven't even discovered yet.
That's a good point.
Time for a quiz. Where in South Africa is aloe really abundant?
The Eastern Cape, it grows like crazy there, and people have been using its healing powers for generations. Okay, next question. What are some of the healing properties of aloe?
Well, like I said, it's great for burns and cuts. It can really soothe and heal your skin. It's a gift from nature's pharmacy.
Last question. What are some of the ways people use aloe today?
It's in a ton of modern beauty products. You can find it in lotions, creams, shampoos, even hair conditioner.
Okay, from the natural world, let's shift gears again. This time to ancient architecture. We're going to the Northwest Province to explore Kaditshwene. It's an ancient town. And let me tell you, the builders back then, they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, Kaditshwene is a really cool example of their skills. The stone walls, they're amazing.
What's so special about the walls?
They built them without any cement or mortar.
No cement or mortar?
Nope.
So how did they do that?
Did you know that they picked out stones of all different shapes and sizes, and then they fit them together perfectly? Like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
A jigsaw puzzle, yeah.
Yeah. The walls are incredibly sturdy and durable. I mean, they've been standing for centuries.
That's amazing. Makes you think, doesn't it? Why would they build a town on a hilltop like that? Was it for defense? So they could see invaders coming?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was symbolic?
Lots of possibilities. Who knows? Maybe it was a little bit of everything.
You're probably right. Okay, time for our quiz about Kaditshwene. First question. Where is it?
The Northwest Province of South Africa. It's an area with a really rich history. Tons of archaeological sites like this one.
Next question. What's so unique about how they built Kaditshwene?
Those stone walls, they're the real stars. Built without any cement or mortar. Just a perfect fit between the stones.
And the last question. What can we learn from a site like Kaditshwene?
It tells us so much about how they built things back then, what kind of tools they used, how they planned their settlements. We can even learn about the challenges they faced.
Okay, get ready for this one. We're going way back in time now, like billions of years. We're going to the Makhonjwa Mountains. They're in Mpumalanga, and they hold some pretty amazing secrets.
Secrets about how our planet began. The Makhonjwa Mountains have some of the oldest rocks on Earth.
Really? The oldest rocks on Earth?
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's almost impossible to even think about that kind of timescale. But those rocks, they're like this tangible link to the very beginnings of our planet.
It really is hard to wrap your head around.
It is. So what makes those rocks so special? To scientists, I mean.
Well, they're like a time machine, basically.
A time machine.
Yeah, they give us a window into what Earth was like billions of years ago. And did you know that the Makhonjwa Mountains are actually a World Heritage Site? Because those rocks are so scientifically valuable.
Wow, a World Heritage Site. Okay, so think about this. What if you could hold a rock that's billions of years old? What kind of stories could it tell you?
I don't know. About volcanoes and oceans forming and maybe even the very first signs of life. It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is. Okay, time for a quick Makhonjwa Mountains quiz. Where are they?
In Mpumalanga, South Africa.
And what makes them so special in the world of geology?
Those ancient rocks, like we said, they're some of the oldest on the planet. They're super valuable to scientists because they can tell us a lot about how the Earth was formed.
Last question. What can scientists learn from studying those super old rocks?
They can figure out what the conditions were like on Earth billions of years ago. how the Earth's crust was formed, how the atmosphere evolved. It's like reading a history book written in stone.
I like that. A history book written in stone. Okay, we're going to shift gears again. From the depths of time to art. Specifically, we're going to explore the incredible sandrock art. It's in the Drakensberg Mountains. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, it's amazing. So detailed and expressive. You can really feel the connection the Sand people had with nature.
They created these paintings over thousands of years. It's incredible to think about. It gives us a glimpse into their lives, their beliefs, their entire world.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And it's amazing that those paintings have survived for so long, exposed to the elements and everything.
What can we learn from them? I mean, what do they tell us about the Sand people?
Well, for one thing, they were incredibly observant. They captured all these details about the animals, the plants, their surroundings, and their spiritual beliefs, too. You see those reflected in the art as well.
Did you know they made their paints from natural pigments, things like plants and minerals? They really knew how to use what nature provided for them.
Yeah, they were very resourceful.
They were. Okay, imagine you're standing in front of one of these ancient paintings.
Yeah.
What stories do you think it's trying to tell you?
I'd be thinking about their beliefs, their rituals, their daily lives, what it was like to live in that environment surrounded by those animals. It would be like stepping into their world.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, time for our Sandrock Art Quiz. First question. Who created these amazing paintings?
The San people, they've been living in southern Africa for thousands of years.
Okay, next. What can we learn from studying Sandrock art?
All sorts of things, like their spiritual beliefs, the rituals they practiced, what their daily life was like, and how they saw the animals and the environment around them. It's an incredible visual record of their culture.
And for the final question, where can you find these paintings?
In the Drakensberg Mountains, mostly in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a really special place. Anyone who's interested in South Africa's history and its artistic heritage should definitely check it out.
Wow. I mean, what a journey, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing exploring all these different facets of South Africa.
From ancient civilizations to powerful activists and incredible art, it's clear that South Africa has a story unlike any other.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a place where, like, the ancient and the modern, they're constantly intersecting.
And, as we wrap up this deep dive into South Africa's history and heritage, one thing really stands out to me.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
This country, it's a testament to human resilience, to adaptability, and the power of the human spirit.
I think you're right. I mean, think about it. We started with the Makhonjwa Mountains. Those ancient rocks, they tell the story of our planet's formation, right?
Billions of years ago.
And then we looked at all the cultures that have shaped South Africa. The Sand people, the ancient Egyptians, even the impact of apartheid and the fight for equality. It's a pretty powerful story.
It really is. I mean, we've journeyed through time today. We started with the Nile River, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt. We explored Tutankhamun's tomb, and we even marveled at the ingenuity of the people who built Kaditshwene with its incredible stone walls.
We saw the beauty of sandrock art, learned about the courage of people like Baard who dedicated their lives to fighting for justice. And we even talked about how names can hold so much power, like with the Gariep Dam. It's a symbol of real change.
And this deep dive, it wasn't just about learning names and dates. It was about going deeper, understanding the connections between all these seemingly disparate things.
Exactly. It's like we'd been piecing together this massive puzzle, and every piece we found, it just revealed another layer of meaning, another connection.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So think about this. How does knowing all of this about South Africa's history, its triumphs and its struggles, its injustices and its resilience, how does that shape how we see it today? How does it help us understand the country's present and its future?
It's a really good question, one that we can all ponder, even after this deep dive is over. And, I really hope that this journey has sparked your curiosity, that you'll want to keep exploring South Africa's incredible history and heritage.
I hope so too. It's a story that's still being written, really.
It is. And as we learn from the people who came before us, maybe we can help write a future that honors their legacies. One that embraces all the potential that South Africa has to offer.
Here's to that.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering all those hidden gems of history that are all around us. You never know what you might find.